to another episode of StichMethod. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification so you can get notices whenever any other videos come out. Today, we're going to be talking about the Hendrix chord, also known as the 7♯9 chord. You know, this chord. We've seen it everywhere. We're going to talk about what it is, how to place it in riffs, how to place it as a chord, and how to solo over it. There's a lot that goes into this, and we don't really see this chord a lot, and I don't want you to be frightened of it, and I want you to understand what it is and how to put it into your own music. And so, with that being said, let's get down to it. This is what the chord looks like. We've seen this every time we play Purple Haze, right? And I'm going to play it right here where Purple Haze is played. 7th fret with the middle finger on the A string, index finger 6th fret of the D string, ring finger is on the 7th fret of the G, and pinky would be on the 8th fret of the B. And the chord sounds like this. You can hear there's some tension in that chord, and we're going to talk about where it comes from and why. And so the first thing we're going to do is look at the root note. This middle finger is the root note. The root note is what names the chord. This is an E, so we have an E, 7♯9. The root note interval is also known as the number 1, so this is our 1. Right next to it on our first finger is our major third. All right, so anytime we have a major third in the chord, we have a major type chord. But let's see what happens. Our ring finger right here is on the flat 7, and so we have a 1, we have a 3, we have a flat 7. And right now, these 3 notes here are good enough to identify it as a dominant 7th chord. And this, you can see it if I play an E7 chord like this. Look at those frets, 7, 6, 7, 5. Here we have 7, 6, 7, 8. And so this massive chunk of it belongs to an E7 chord. But then all of a sudden, we have this bad boy right here, 8th fret of the B. Before I discuss that, I'm going to show you something. If I pull this pinky back, we have an E9 chord, okay? So this is an E9. Jazzy. And then all of a sudden somebody decided to do this. ♯9. Now I'm going to show you something what a ♯9 is. We're going to take a quick break for a second from this chord, so memorize it. But let me show you an E right here. This is an E. This is a number 2. Number 2, an octave higher, is also a 9. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then the 1 you can say is an 8, but it's really a 1. And then it's 9. Okay, and that's how you kind of like loop an octave. So this second interval, or major second, excuse me, is also a 9. But when we sharp the 9, man, does that look like a minor third? Excuse me, 1, flat 3, or ♯9. In fact, a ♯9 and a flat 3 are the same exact note. This is a minor third. So if in case your head is spinning, let me back up and show you something. What's really complex is, okay, there's my root, there's a major third, there's a flat 7, there's a minor third, also known as a ♯9. And it's like, what? We have a major third and a minor third in the same chord? Listen to what happens when I play these 2 notes together. You might get a Twilight Zone type feel or an imbalance because these 2 notes are actually a half step apart. And any notes that are half step apart are kind of like, you know, tense. But listen to what happens when I pull this guy back to the octave. Like, ah, and all of a sudden, and these 2 notes are what's in this chord. And so we have the 7th chord with an added ♯9, which is also a minor third, and we have this very tense chord. 7th chords by themselves are tense. Now we're adding even more tension. And now this is a great chord to provide some tension. I'm going to show you some examples in real life, but where we can put this right now is very simple. You can put this, and hopefully you're following this and enjoying this. This 7♯9 chord likes to go in the 5 slot of any key. And let me show you what I mean. Now, actually, before we get there, I just want to show you, this is a root note, so we can move this thing around. This is an E7♯9. This is a D7♯9. This is a C7♯9. And so, if you've seen my blues class, or sorry, my blues playlist, or take my blues masterclasses, or any videos where I talk about intervals, a key is a major scale, and each note gets harmonized as a chord. The 1 chord is major, the 2 and 3 chords are minor, the 4 and 5 chords are major, the 6th chord is minor, and the 7th chord is diminished. Now that 5 chord in any key can be played as a 7th chord. If I play a simple 1, 4, and 5 in A, D, and E, it sounds great, and I can sit and make anything up. But now if you want some extra tension, okay, the first layer of extra tension is adding just the 7th chord. Now the third layer of tension is adding the 7 sharp 9. And so this guy can be put in any scenario where the 5 is played as a dominant chord, or you want some extra tension in your riff. And so if you're playing a riff based off of like A, and you have like a 1, 4, 5 in A, and you're playing like a minor pentatonic, like a riff on top of it, and you're being like, not here, at the end. All right, so the first place you can put it, of course, is in any 5 spot. Any place where the 5 chord or the dominant chord is playing, you can sub it in. And you can put this in your blues turnarounds, you can do whatever you want, it fits. Let's go into the next thing. The next thing's a little more complex, and to be honest, who knows, what was thought about when we look at the end result, but I want to show you, I want to reverse engineer this. We're going to talk about 2 songs. We're going to talk about Purple Haze, and we're going to talk about the song Down with Disease. Okay. Now both of these have something in common. They both start with a 7 sharp 9 chord. They will end up going, if this is my how do I explain this? They will both resolve 1 string below 2 frets. Okay, like this. If this is on the 7th fret, they're going to resolve on the E string on the 5th fret. Here at Down Disease, we start here and we resolve 2 frets down, 1 string above. And I'll explain this in a little further. But when you look at this riff of Purple Haze, you have this E7 sharp 9 into a G to an A. And anytime you play 2 chords that are major back to back or have a major third in it, it's a creeping suspicion that these are the 4 and 5 of a key. All right, and so G and A, and it's like, well, what the heck why are we starting on an E here? And the trick is that if you look here, really there's 2 ways to look at it. I'll give you the more complex one just to be brutal. Is this is the 4 chord, this is the 5 chord. Well, we talked about tension, right? We talked about how the 5 chord is tense, adding a 7th chord is tense, putting a 7 sharp 9 chord on top of that thing is tense. But now let's take the 5 chord and place the most tense chord, a 7 sharp 9, on the 5 of the 5, a secondary dominant. Here is your A. Say you just write a riff that's G to A, and you want to add some good tension to it, or create a riff that falls into this. Well, you can take the 5 of the 5. Here is your A. To find any 5 of any note you're on, you go 1 string over, 2 frets up, and you can see that we start here with the 7 sharp 9 chord. So the 4, the 5, and that 5 is the resolve. You can see that it really makes that whole song move, especially when you get to the A, you feel the resolve. In the song Down with Disease, it is not anything different, all right? We have a D, 7 sharp 9, 4 chord, 5 chord, secondary dominant as the 7 sharp 9 chord. And that's where this riff comes from. So you can do the same thing. You can, there's plenty of songs that have this. You can create your own just to show you. Let's say I have a song that goes from B to C sharp. All right. Well, I want to create a riff that tips the hat towards this. So so here's my C sharp. Where's my 5? Boop boop boop. Here we have a G sharp. So I can sit here and like. You get the idea. It's not going to sound too familiar if you kind of spice up your rhythm and use different notes. There's another example of it. All right. Now I want to talk about a third example, actually, which was kind of my first example. But when you look at AC/DC's "Shoot to Thrill," that little line that gonna take it down, and then the da da da, and then it goes to the E7 sharp 9, and where does it go? Well, look at this. It goes to the A. I should have shown this in the first part, but there's your 7 sharp 9 on the E, and it's going and resolving back, treating this as the 5 chord, going back home to its 1. Now where this 1 chord is in the whole progression, I don't care, but you can see how we treat this as a 5 chord, a really intense 5 chord. Shoot the thrill. And so you can always treat this as a 5 to 1, a secondary dominant type thing. All right. Now you can also throw this in whenever you just want something tense, and this is really cool. There's a song I love, and it's called Hi-Hat Blues, and it starts off. And so you can see it's a cool riff using 7 sharp 9th chords, and it sounds tense. And so I want to show you that this chord shouldn't be, you shouldn't be like, well, why are we using this chord? It's a tense chord. You can use it as a 5 chord. You can use it as the 5 of the 5, or you can use it in any riff that you think deserves tension. And so here are some examples of just how to play it as a chord and play it as a riff. Let's briefly just talk about how to solo over it. Let's say you write a riff that has a big, big, big vamp on this thing, like you're playing an A riff, and you're like, A, and you're like, let's say you're soloing over that, and it's like, well, how do you solo over that? Well, the best thing to do on top of this, there's 2 things you can try. And the first thing is find out, well, what chord am I playing? In this case, you have an E7 sharp 9. Go for the minor pentatonic, but I'm going to point to a video right here. I think it's my blues trick, either number 2 or 3. I can't remember. I really have to look it up, and when I point, it'll be there. And so it talks about taking the minor pentatonic, or whatever chord you're on, whatever chord, and playing the minor pentatonic. But there's a twist here, is this note here. Here's my root, here's my 9, all right? And just like I showed you in the beginning of the video, instead of going right for the minor third, you can take that 9 and bend it towards the minor third, and then solo in your minor and then solo in your minor pentatonic. So if I had this, that little 9 bent up to the minor third really gives some, it kind of leads in and attaches to the minor third of that chord quite well, and also gives it a bluesy feel. Another thing you can do, and this is the last thing we'll talk about, just ideas. These are just ideas, and I hope that you're enjoying this. And if you want to practice these ideas, of course, come join me on Patreon. I really just want to describe to you how this chord works, and hopefully I'm not going too fast. But we're going to take that example of, okay, if we have the 5 chord here, if we're using this as a 5 chord, we have a 1, 4, and 5, and we're kind of writing an A riff, some sort of A, we're starting on A and some sort of minor pentatonic. And then we get to here. If we're soloing, if we write this chord as the dominant chord of the 5 chord, look at this. We're going to be soloing in an A minor pentatonic anyway, because our riff is based on an A minor pentatonic. And so anytime you have a 1, and this is your 5, you can solo with the minor pentatonic of the 1. Look at the footprint here. Is this note in the minor pentatonic of A? Yes. Is this note in the minor pentatonic of A? No. Is this note in the minor pentatonic of A? Yes. Is this note in the minor pentatonic of A? Yes. So anytime you have a 7 sharp 9 chord, you can, I'll explain that again slowly, or in a couple seconds. You can solo based on its root note with its minor pentatonic. This is an E7 sharp 9. You can solo on top of it with an E minor pentatonic, and you can bring in that 9th. If this is acting as a 5 chord, you can really stay in the pentatonic of where you started. So if I was like this, really? right, so I'm going to stop here. Hopefully this wasn't too long. Hopefully it wasn't too confusing. It's a dominant chord. It has a major third. It has a minor third. You can use it as a 5 chord in your riffs. You can use it as a secondary dominant to create some more tension in any riffs that you create. You can solo over it with its root note pentatonic, bring in the ninth and bending it to the minor third. You can also solo with it with the parent minor pentatonic if you treat it as a 5 chord. Hopefully this makes sense. Let me know if this made sense. I'll stop talking. Thank you so much for being here on another episode of StichMethod, and we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.